Cancel? It's two cancel.
I'd like to call the Committee on Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters to order at 7:11. I just have one motion that I have a public hearing for next week, so I wanted to read it into the record so I don't have to read it into the record again. And then I asked Gary Arazian to give us a brief description of why we're doing this and why we're having this public hearing. So for those at home, if this seems kind of strange to you, this is a good explanation of why you might want to come to the public hearing or why you might not care. So I will read it into the record. Hopefully I can get a second. Then we'll discuss it, and I will adjourn without a vote. Okay. From the docket of April 21st, 2015, the mayor respectfully submits a communication from City Solicitor Robert Mangiarotti in agreement with the Planning and Development and the Building Inspector regarding proposed amendments to zoning ordinances. These amendments would specifically define asphalt plant and concrete plant. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests your honorable body to amend the following sections of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro. Amend 17-3.4 Table of Use Regulations, Wholesale, Transportation, and Industrial by inserting the new land uses number 15 and 16. Principal uses wholesale, which produces and or recycles asphalt or similar coated road stone and has equipment designed to heat and dry aggregate and to mix mineral aggregate with asphalt cement, liquid asphalt, and or tar. Asphalt plants include but are not limited to the systems for screening, handling, storing, and weighing hot aggregate, systems for loading, transferring, and storing mineral filler, systems for mixing asphalt concrete, stockpiling, and storage of bulk materials used in the process, or finished products manufactured on the premises, the storage and maintenance of equipment and facilities for the administration and management of the business. Concrete plant, the use of land, building, or structure or parts thereof, whether ready mix or central mix, which combines various ingredients such as but not limited to sand, water, aggregate, which is rocks and gravel, fly ash, potash, and or cement to form concrete. A concrete plant shall include those parts and accessories, including mixers, cement batches, aggregate batches, conveyors, radial stackers, aggregate bins, cement bins, heaters, chillers, cement silos, and batch plant controls.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. So my first purpose was to read this into the record tonight so we don't have to hear all this again. And I also want to give the people at home a little information about why this got brought down from the administration. A reminder, we are having a public hearing on this next Tuesday. That's May 5th at 7 p.m. Everyone's welcome. If you're in favor, in opposition, or neither for nor against, you're welcome to come and regulate that under the zoning ordinances. So that's what we'll be discussing during next week's public hearing. And that's all I have for anyone, unless there are any further questions. Ms. Churchill.
Has the city contacted any community that actually has an asphalt plant?
I do not know. I know that we will have Mr. Hutchins, who is the chair of the ZBA, and Gary Arazian at the public hearing next week. So I would ask them, but I do not know.
And as a follow-up, concrete plants as opposed to asphalt plants are less offensive than asphalt plants.
I think that is part of the wanting to regulate them differently, yes. Mr. Conti.
Has the board's given any consideration to scale and size for this type of plant? In other words, I believe LaRusso at the former Morris gravel pit was putting in a small concrete plant to make concrete, which I would think would be less offensive than a big concrete plant. I don't know.
Likely.
So my question is has scale been given consideration in the development of the ordinance?
It does not appear that scale has. It just appears that the use of land has been divided, but scale is not touched, and scale isn't usually touched unless it's like residential or something, or sorry, commercial. So like big business, small business. I do not believe that in many of our table of uses, they have like big concrete plant, little concrete plant, big asphalt, small asphalt, but I think Mr. Kirby has a better answer.
I'm thinking that that would be regulated under the special permit, because it, regardless of size, it would have to be approved through a special permit. So,
Yeah.
if the authority, which I'm assuming is zoning,
Yes.
zoning sees the plant as too cumbersome for the environment, they can then reject it. So there is another stamp of, or regulation gate that a proposed business would have to go through.
Yes. None of these are by right. What it does is it keeps concrete and asphalt plants regulated in the same area. They can both only be located in industrial, not IBP, just industrial, and only through special permit.
Thank you.
Ms. Thibodeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for coming in late. Is there a restriction on, even if it's within industrial zoned, is there a restriction as to how far it has to be away from a residential zone?
Not in the ordinance itself, but I do believe that that would be taken into consideration by the planning board or the zoning board of appeals before issuing a special permit.
The reason I asked the question is I lived near I lived near the state line when Pascal operated a cement block company. I lived in Rhode Island and they were located in Massachusetts, but they were only like 500 feet away from my home. And the mixer that they mixed the cement in went 24/7. And there was a vibration from that the whole neighborhood felt constantly. It wasn't necessarily the sound as much as it was the vibration. Or if it was grandfathered, I mean, if it existed before zoning, I don't have any idea on that. But just seems to me if I remember it, and I wasn't involved at all at the time, but I remember the experience, that perhaps we need something to protect not just the residents within our city, but the residents beyond our border, that, it'd be consistent no matter where the plant is. If it's in an industrial area and it's within a certain distance of a residential area, then there needs to be, maybe it needs to be a special permit from the city council or something other than that, where there would be other safeguards.
So I would invite you to ask that question of either Gary or Mr. Hutchins or the mayor during the public hearing. So this was just brought down to me as is, so I don't intend to amend it or manipulate it ahead of time, because this isn't like my brainchild.
Gotcha.
But if after the public hearings, the will of the council is to change it in some way, we can always offer amendments and do that. But just for the present purposes, I kind of intend to move forward through the public hearing with what was brought down.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Egney.
And as even what Walter's saying is, be glad to see who comes to the public hearing too, and have more explanation, because I know living next to the old more sand and gravel, I know we were lucky enough that there was a lapse in their special permit, so when they had to come back to get a new permit, I actually had gone to the zoning board and asked for like certain things to be added as conditions, and because that's a concern. I know even with the blasting, I'm woken up in the morning by that, so I can understand what you're saying with the vibrations or the sounds, and that'll be good to hear more.
It's my understanding that the reasoning behind this is to allow different analysis based on whether it's an asphalt plant, which may or may not make more noise or cause more air pollution or something, versus a concrete plant, which may or may not cause less noise and less pollution. So this would give the boards who govern it more discretion based on the difference between the two. Whereas if we do not pass this, there's just one definition of concrete under which asphalt may or may not fall. It's still being determined. So this would be a step in the right direction to give our city boards more discretion to kind of manage these two different types of plans. Any other questions or comments? No. All right. So I'm not going to take a vote on this. I'm
So
going.
since it's before the committee, though, if you'll need me to withdraw the second and
Okay. Will you withdraw your second?
Withdraw
All
the
right.
second.
Thank you. I move to adjourn at 7:25.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Let's.
I'm sorry.
Call the licensing committee at 7:25. We have 7 motions before this honorable body this evening. From the docket of May 5th, 2005, I entertain a motion to approve the application of 2015 renewal hackers and peddlers license to sell ice cream and frozen lemonade from Ron Pelagi, Pelagi Brothers, Inc., 28 Delta Drive, Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Second.
Any other comments?
Freebies.
On each one of these, Pelagi, I have already checked with the police as to what is required, and I don't have any concerns on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Again, I entertain a motion from the docket of May 5th to approve the application for a 2015 Ring a Bell license from Ron Pelagi, Pelagi Ice Cream, 28 Delta Drive, Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And from the docket of May 5th, again, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 215th renewal Hackney carriage driver's license from Peter Andrew Sorrell, 255 Elm Street, apartment 2, North Attleboro.
Second.
I talked to Chief Hegney, I've talked to the clerk, and my colleague and previous license chairman has also talked to them, and what has happened is if it's a brand-new license application, they have to be fingerprinted. If it's a renewal, they do not. And Chief Hegney concurred with that, and he talked to Betty, and I know he talked to Jeremy about it too, and I also did. So right now, that particular part of the renewal process has been straightened out. And obviously, the Corey clearance comes from the fingerprinting, and once you have been fingerprinted, the Corey clearance can renew itself every year. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 2015 Hackney carriage driver's license from Timothy George Theodorus of 2340 Cedar Street, Dayton, Massachusetts.
Second.
Again, the comments are the same as the previous, and I believe this is one of the new ones, and he will be fingerprinted. Yes.
And I see it says recommends denial. And it just says
I'm sorry.
untruthful on, we don't have to elaborate when it comes back for denial, but it says recommend denial.
On the one I just read,
Timothy?
I don't see that. I'll read it again. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a 215 new Hackney carriage driver's license from Timothy George Theodorus of 2340 Cedar Street, Dayton, Mass. I don't have any additional.
So yeah, if you look at the very bottom.
Oh,
of
I'm
that
sorry.
page.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I've done it before too.
Okay,
We don't have to elaborate. It just says recommend denial.
all right.
So we just vote no.
Then I would.
But
I
we
would-
voted yes to come out of committee.
All right, and I will find out what the denial reason is.
And then
It
don't
just-
share it on TV.
No, I will just say, okay, I approve.
Well, it says on the bottom.
I support the denial.
It was
I just
an
want to find out what it is.
untruthful application, so it recommends denial. So what we usually do is we vote it yes out of committee, then during the whole council, we vote no.
Thank you for that.
You're
Any other
welcome.
comments? It's in limbo.
No, you still have to vote it out of committee.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And my sixth motion, I entertain a motion to approve the application of amended license for 3 10,000-gallon gasoline underground storage tanks and 1 8,000-gallon diesel tank for Cumberland Farms, Inc., 100 Cross Boulevard, Framingham, Mass., for the property located on 222 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, Mass., said premises being assessed as plot number 58, lot number 22, as of 4/7/15.
Second.
And as everyone knows, the gentleman was here before us. And for those of you who don't know, anything over 10,000 gallons requires a state approval as well as the local fire chief. The 8,000 gallon tank is before us, and he explained why he's doing it. My understanding is they're renovating the whole property. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And my last, and not the least, I entertain a motion to revoke the 2015 Class II auto license for AOK Used Cars LLC, doing business as AOK Car Sales, 650 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 57 display spaces, 12 customer parking spaces, for the following reasons. 1, several complaints from customers relative to being unable to obtain a sticker. 2, displayed a very poor business practice by writing a $4,999 check to a customer with insufficient funds. And 3, the owner is not a proper person to operate this business.
Second.
Any comments? We had a public hearing up in front of this honorable body, and behind the scenes, this individual was given many chances. I'm not in favor of taking someone's business away, but we placed it in his hands, and he failed to respond to the needs of the community and the request of this council. And I approve that we do it.
I just want to say thank you to you, because one thing that you have done is try to mediate behind the scenes and really try to get the communication, the parties working together. And as we see, we get more complaints. And I'm not one, like you said, to revoke someone's license. And I know he kind of said something that kind of pulls on your heartstrings, like it's a business. But we're looking at it as a proper business and everything else that's been said on both sides. But I just want to say thank you for the
Welcome,
job
Mike.
you did.
This was not an easy decision either. I spoke with him many times. But rather than to delay this anymore, all in favor? Yeah, I'm
Aye.
sorry.
Oh.
I just want to say, when we all do our analysis of this, we need to keep proper person really in mind. That's the legal standard. So points 1 and 2 can definitely weigh on whether or not the owner is a proper person, but legally, this legislative body has to decide whether or not this owner is a proper person. But I support passing it out of committee, so I'll say yes.
Any other comments from this honorable body? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that's all I have from licensing, and I adjourn at 7:32.
Second.
I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn?
Aye. All in favor? Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have, 7:32.
Close enough.
Only we could get closer if we were throwing hand grenades. I just received a couple.
But they were friendly.
Yes, definitely.
Hit by friendly fire.
They still had the pin in them.
I'd like to call the capital improvement city development meeting to order at 7:32. I have one motion to bring before the committee, but before I do, one announcement that Cumberland Farms is stepping up to donate 10 cents per cup of dispensed beverage to the community development block grant program in Attleboro. So between May 6th to June 3rd, anybody in Attleboro that goes to a Cumberland Farms and gets a little soft drink out of the little dispenser, 10 cents will go into the community development program. So you all have flyers, there'll be flyers around town, and I encourage you to participate. From the docket of April 7, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the administration's, as soon as she can get it off the HUD, the better off she is. And no one likes to wait until the last minute. Any comments on the community development block grant program funds? Motion's in order, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, motion's in order, all in favor?
Aye.
I declare the capital improvements and city development committee adjourned. 7:35, wonderful 3-minute meeting.
Zoning was already canceled, so budget.
Was it? No. Yep. Missed that.
Brian, excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
gonna send a copy of,
Oh, the other thing, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Although I haven't read it yet, so it'd be tough to refer to, but I'll work on it. Call budget and appropriations to order at 7:35.
Is that better where I put it?
Right. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Slid it right down.
I have two motions this evening from the docket of May 5th, 2015. I entertain a motion in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 12, subsection B, to approve the school department's 60-month lease with ACT Leasing, Inc. for 8 Ford Transit vans in the Transportation Department. Thank you. Okay, we received some information from, and we had known for a number of months, years, that the school department was looking to replace school buses. We know that a number of buses came down to be surplus, which Mrs. Parika is holding on to make sure that we have transportation for students through the end of our school year. But we knew that we would have to look at replacing the vehicles. So the plan is to lease 8 10-passenger vans at a cost, right now the cost is $571.63 per bus per month, which totals $54,800 plus dollars. And I actually have the numbers, I can go into them, $54,876. They had projected in the budget that it was going to be actually more than that, it would be about $600 per bus per month, and that number has already come down. And I understand also that that number could go down as well again. As of last year, they were spending over $73,000 in repairs on the old buses. So while that not all of the $73,000 is going to go away, there's a good portion of that is going to go away with the releasing of new vehicles, because they're only keeping 2 of the vehicles that are currently on the road. So we're looking at pretty much, it's very close to a clean transfer over, that the budget won't actually increase, even though we're going to be getting new vehicles. If you look at the condition of our vehicles, some of those vehicles are like, we want to have Blue Pride, and all the Bloom buses look good, and then you see an Attleboro school transportation, those numbers, as you know, we get a vote on as we move forward through the budget process, which is coming up fast and furious. But those numbers could actually go down in terms of the leasing. So I do want to thank Mrs. Parika. She did a lot of the legwork on this, and I felt comfortable with it. But as I read through it, it just really made sense. There's also other pieces to it that I know Mrs. Parika will have to step aside for. But you raised your hand first.
I did. Thank you very much, Brian. It was my pleasure to kind of help fill in some of the holes that we had with this. Where the information came down last week with regards to the surplusing the buses, I would be remiss if I wasn't doing my job when I spoke to Mark that I didn't say, okay, so I'm happy to just surplus them, but what's the next step? So there was a whole slew of questions that came through, and for me anyway, and Mark has been very generous with his comments back to me. We've emailed correspondence wise. This is a smart, in my opinion. A year ago, they were looking for $180,000 to replace a full fleet of buses. They're not doing that. They've downsized the amount of employees that they have there. They've downsized the fleet. They're surplusing a significant, and Councilor Kirby was 100% accurate. Those buses are really just a nightmare. And I spoke with a couple of the drivers over there because we come across each other's paths on a regular basis, and it is just very difficult to keep them going in the appropriate manner. I think that a lease for this provides a level of comfort where if the opportunity comes to put the entire contract out to bid, we can do that. And then at that time, figure out what we'll do with the school department funding for that. That these buses need to be replaced as soon as possible, and so there's an 8-week lead time on them. So this is something that you are very well aware. But as people at home and my fellow counselors need to know, this needs to move along. I have been horrifically, but justifiably critical of the transportation department, and I have asked, not only as a civilian, as a bus driver, and as a counselor, for them to make corrective changes to that department to make it run better, more effectively, smoothly, and I, with full confidence, can say that they have.
Changes in tires, because normally it doesn't. So like I would just.
If I could-
you have the answer.
I do have the answer through communication that came, as I asked that same question.
Okay.
What happens if something catastrophic happens and we blow an engine? Who's responsible? So the response that I got, they do not, because they are still wheedling down the numbers, there's the chance that the numbers, that the cost per van per month could still go down. The cost out, they are still working these numbers up until the time that they could, that, until the council says, yep, we're gonna allow you to enter into a lease agreement. They haven't pulled the numbers on the contract. So I specifically asked those questions, and I will read to you specifically what they said. My question was, does a lease agreement come with major repairs? We would be responsible for oil changes and things like that. However, we have a bumper-to-bumper 3-year, 36,000 miles. We have a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain. Very importantly, especially as it pertains to these buses, we have a Power Stroke diesel engine for 5 years, 100,000-mile warranty. The safety restraint system, which is exceptionally important, is 5 years for 60,000 miles. We have corrosion for 5 years with unlimited miles, and this also includes a roadside assistance program. There is no mileage cap on this, so if that was, I don't know what your next questions were, but at the end of the lease, when we turn it in, we're not gonna get hit with overages if we go over in mileage. It's an open-ended. And there is an option to purchase the vehicles at the end, and those numbers are also negotiable, similar to when you come to an end of a regular lease, if you lease a bus privately.
Follow up?
So, thank you. That answers many of the questions.
You're welcome.
I guess my concern is we're being asked to approve a 60-month lease without a contract in front of us, with the words that they'll finish negotiating the contract after we approve the lease. And that might be fine and dandy, but that certainly causes some concern with me, as I would like to be able to look at a contract, and if there isn't one, I don't really know what we're approving other than like pastel colors. So I would love it if we could get like a contract circulated, and I'll save my comments for the next one because I know I can't do them from this pre, but I have contract concerns for the next one also.
If we can move it through committee, but have a lease generated for, or a hard copy of the lease generated for the next
As
meeting.
a $1
Is that-
fee.
Is that acceptable?
That is totally fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Blair, you were up second.
Well, most of my questions were answered, but I too, as Mr. Denley said, I wouldn't vote to approve this magical figure without reading the lease. I've read a lot of leases and dealt with a lot of people in the lease business, car sales and whatnot. Not word of mouth will I put my stamp of approval on without reading it in writing, to know how we stand. I don't think that's good business to do things that way.
Okay. Mr. Churchill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both councils have just kind of raised a question. I agree with the contract. My concern is of the $73,000 that was for repairs, how much of that will reoccur? She said oil changes and things like that. I'd like to see what those.
Paying for it anyway. And from where I'm sitting, the numbers look very, very close, that we're not going up we're holding steady, and we're getting new vehicles. Mr. Conti, your hand was next.
Mr. Chairman, what is the forecast for the annual mileage for one of these vehicles?
Yeah.
I'll put that down as a question.
Yeah.
That's
It
important
doesn't
because
matter.
lots of
Yeah, but it does matter.
It
The
doesn't.
maintenance.
well, lots of
doesn't
the
matter on
warranties you
maintenance.
said were only for
Maintenance.
60,000 miles. So if we do 20,000 a year, we're going to be out of warranty in 3 years.
Forecast of.
Right, in terms of your,
Go ahead.
if I may, in terms
Somewhere
of
I lost
your
the chair.
predicted cost of maintenance, because as your vehicles age, your maintenance goes up, I agree. But I think in terms of your, if it's a 20,000 mile per year lease, and you do 30,000 miles on a lease that you and I do, we pay 25, 28, 32, whatever cents per mile. This doesn't have that. The response from Mark Furtado said it's a no mileage lease. So essentially, in my mind, we're calling it a lease, but we're financing these vehicles over, call it what you want, it's just cute. You're calling it something
Financing
cute. It's a 5-year note with a $1 buyout after 5 years and no limits with a traditional vehicle warranty. The question for me is, what's the difference in expense? Because I think that's where it makes it. It may be helpful for either the
Yep.
chairman or for Mrs. Parika to read the question she asked and the answer she was given, because I think we're asking a similar subset of questions to the email that was received and the comments that were received back from.
From Mark Furtado.
Yes, so it's relatively short, but the answers were
Whatever you'd like.
reasonable,
Okay.
I thought.
I mean, oh, you have a question before?
No, I just think that to simplify this matter, so we're not going back and forth, and he said, she said, you said, they said, let's see the contract.
Exactly.
You know, after that, if you got any questions, we'll go over it.
Exactly.
But this is, he said, she said, and if it isn't in writing and you can't read it, I'm not interested.
What I will do,
Can I
Go-
ask my follow-up
Sure.
question? So I think those are great questions and they need to be answered, but then what will happen, like what happens after that? Like if you get an answer that they run, 35,000 miles a year, so what's your answer after that? So then,
But your own mind. You gotta do the figuring. I would have to look at it and figure out whether I thought it was the way to go. And that's my opinion. Everybody here could have a different opinion. But till I get those statistics, I'm not gonna give an opinion on this contract.
Exactly.
I won't vote for it.
okay. Mr. Cooper.
But I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that I agree with the contract, and I agree with the incidental expense related to maintaining and running vehicles, whether they're new or old.
Yeah.
There's an expense other than what you pay every month for a note. And I think we should see that. I think we should see some type of draft contract with some terms on it. But I think that's all nice. What they asked us to do was approve a 5-year lease for 8 buses. And they didn't ask us for money.
But, and that's,
But we will be, it'll be budgeting out of, it'll
They
be.
will, they will be.
Yes,
No doubt.
because that's
Right.
coming in the
So
the
I think
budget.
it's important now
that
to,
makes sense, what you just said, okay.
Yeah,
get it.
because our job is not to approve the money
Right.
at this time.
because that goes through the budget process.
Right.
But I'm not gonna vote to approve a lease. I don't know what the cost is.
I don't think anybody
It's
is.
absolutely as simple as that.
Pete, I don't think anybody is.
Nobody's objecting to you on that.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I mean, I don't know what we're discussing it for. Get the contract, let us read it.
Okay.
let's discuss.
Now, again, would it be all right with the council if we voted from committee so that or do we want to wait and have a meeting before next week?
It's voted from committee.
I'm okay with voting it out of committee.
Voting it
as
out
long
of
as
committee and get the information for
the
you
full council.
during the week.
And if it's not adequate,
Okay.
we don't vote it or vote it down.
Correct. Mr. Thibodeau?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what we need to find out is what's the difference between a private lease and a public lease? Because a private lease of a vehicle through a company or a business by a leasing company would include all maintenance, replacement of the vehicle, all of the, if the machine breaks down, they bring out another machine. I mean, there are different leases. And that's, yeah, I agree with you, Pete, and that, but we need to know, if we're going to be signing a lease, we may be better off, if we pay a little bit more on the monthly, payments, if we don't purchase. If we do a lease where they're gonna do all the maintenance and replacement of the vehicles should they break down. I know in the private sector, when I was working for companies that were doing leasing rather than buying vehicles, I could break down in Maine, for instance, as I was peddling goods, and they would come with a hook and take me around on my route until my truck was empty. So, and that was all included in the lease. So I mean, I think we need to make some comparisons here before we go ahead.
But I'm not sure that it's going to be our role because it's the administration.
And we'll have time with that, and
Sure.
I'll read everything on my own. I don't want to listen to somebody else's opinion of what they read.
Okay.
I want to ask my questions. I want to get my answers.
Right.
Thank you.
Mrs. Parika?
If I may be so bold as to make the recommendation of calling Mr. Furtado and asking him to present in front of us. I'm sure that he would be available to answer any and all questions at any time.
And have a contract.
And you can have you can,
All the
any question you have, ask him directly. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Conti?
Mr. Chairman, if we vote down this 60-month lease,
Yes.
they can go out and sign a 36-month lease without
Yes,
a...
they can.
Yeah, understand.
So it's not a dead deal.
Okay. My bet is it would be a different number.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
what they've said that they would be doing is if we went no, they would be dismantling the transportation department rather than going to a smaller lease. But that may be their choice.
Their decision.
Right. Mr. Churchill?
If I may ask, Councilor Parika, a
Through
question?
the, yeah?
Do you feel that there's, I think the underlying question here is, they feel they have a need to have buses. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Okay,
I
that's
agree
all
with
I
that.
need to
If I
know.
may expand and redirect, for a couple of reasons that, yes, they would end up disbanding the transportation department. There are employees that work for them that are under a union contract. We would be responsible to have to pay for them severance packages and so on. In addition to that, we would have to contract out the business that they currently do because we cannot add it to the current bus bid. So on top of
There's
that.
an added cost.
It would be an enormous cost, because we certainly wouldn't be getting a deal. The city of Attleboro, if at the last second, we now have to contract out all of our out-of-business work. You think McKinney-Vento costs money, that's nothing. So those are some of the things that you have to take into consideration when you're doing this.
So as a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, by bringing it out of committee, we haven't approved the money, we're allowing ourselves to look at it in
Correct.
depth, and then if we decide not to vote the money, but I think if there's a need, I think we need to address it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, at Ms. Parika's suggestion, I can call for a committee meeting next Tuesday and have Mr. Furtado, and ask Mr. Furtado to attend to answer questions and to provide us. I'll give him a list of everything you've asked for. I show 5 things right now. Next motion, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the school department to exercise the first option year in the H.L. Bloom Transportation Contract that was initially entered into on July 1st, 2012, and was approved at the March 17th, 2015 school committee meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Waite. So, over the past 3 years, the Bloom contract was a source of a number of issues. I believe at this point, from what I'm hearing, what I feel, what I see, is that the contract is going well. So it appears that it's taken them 3+ years to get everything worked out and get their, and get a system working between the school school board, school system, and the Bloom Company. So as I see it right now, it looks like things are working. Also, that the cost of the contract from Mr. Furtado, the contract with the current vendor provides Attleboro schools with a competitive rates and the necessary flexibility to administer the transportation system in a way beneficial to students. The company has the capacity and the professionalism necessary, again, these are Mr. Furtado's words, to effectively deliver the services needed for effective and efficient delivery of transportation services to the Attleboro schools. The increase in the cost per day
Is very different than what's written. At one point, we were hearing that there weren't enough buses, so all the buses were late. So we needed more money for buses. But then I talked to someone else, and they said, oh, well, in the contract, it says if a bus is late, that Bloom will deduct X amount of money. So it wouldn't seem like if buses were late, we'd actually need more money for buses, so that there'd be a late fee in the contract. And so I want to see, is there a late fee in the contract? Is there not? If there is a late fee in the contract, are we executing it, or are we not utilizing that late fee? So just for me to have the time at my home to kind of go through it and scrutinize it a little would be nice. Right now, I don't have an opinion really for or against. I just kind of want more information. I just want to read it kind of from the black and white 4 corners of the page.
And one other piece I think that's changed that will help the transportation system is how the school committee has changed a policy with how they're picking up students. And so I think that, so that there's some students at this point who they wouldn't know until within the first couple of months of school where their bus stop is going to be, when their bus is going to be arriving, and their new policy would be bus routes would be published prior to the start of the school year. Kids would know where the bus stops would be. There would be more consistency. There may have to be some tweaking afterwards, but it would be a matter of tweaking rather than re-engineering within the first 2 months, which is what we saw in this past year. So, and, you know, we received phone calls in addition to, I know that the school committee had huge issues with this. So that was a wise change in policy by the school committee, which I think will assist the school buses in terms of taking care of that late issue that you were just talking about. But, Mr. Blair?
I personally see it that minute increase in the price, if things are going smooth, it's not broke, don't fix it. If you took the time to send it out for bids again at this time, I think that's fruitless. In a short period of time, the bids are gonna come in high. We're gonna rebid this. We started on it a long time before the school year, so.
If this body is looking for the school committee to look at new transportation in the future, then we should let the school committee know that maybe through the communication that Mr. Cook and Ms. Dave.
Maybe you got a discount. Let's see if what was your
But-
total figure compared with Brian's?
$1,712,160.
So student transportation SE contract for fiscal 16 says, and this may include other things, but it says 1,810.
No, it doesn't include the minis. I don't, the price on the minis is right, 311. Just clarifying that.
Right. Well, and we can get that,
I,
certainly. 326 or 328, we can certainly get that.
yeah, that would be helpful, I think. Follow-up question. I think, I don't necessarily disagree that there's been a lot of changes, but they needed to happen. I mean, we were really, I mean, it wasn't, you know, they bought routing software and they did a lot of things that needed to be done. But I, you know, we're kind of speculating because we didn't send it out to bid whether or not we could save money. You know, they say it's, the bids, the prices are competitive, but we don't know what the bus market is. We don't know, the gas prices were different, there's gas inflators in these that might be different than what could be today. There's a lot of things that are different than were almost 4 years ago when we did it, and I think, you know, when we're spending a couple $1 million on student transportation, we ought to take the opportunities to look at saving, if there is any, there may not be, and then we spent money to go out to bid on that whole bidding process. But I think that when you're talking several $1 million to move kids around and they're established in the city and they have a nice place now to store their buses, they're not getting, you know, complaints about that, and neighborhoods complaining about that, and they have done a lot of things that we, as an honorable body, but also as a community, kind of sort of almost demanded from them to stand up to what they obligated through a contract to the citizens of the city. So I agree, but I think that that's a lot of money, and it's somewhat speculative to say.
Because we may get calls and we redirect them with their help. So thank you to them, but you did bring up other points. As Mark had said, how many buses, make sure we have enough buses, what's the cost, and so.
Yep. Mr. Thibodeau?
Mr. Churchill was actually
Mr. Churchill.
ahead of me.
Question, Mr. Chairman, for him when he shows up.
Yes.
I'd like to know the difference between the original bid specifications and the present contract.
Difference
The
between.
contract should reflect the bid verbatim.
Difference between the original bid and,
The present contract that we're about to renew.
go
I
ahead.
believe, Mr. Kirby, that, and you likely recall this as well, that these options were priced out in the original contract, and it's, I think what Councilor Churchill's getting at is making sure that the 326 or 328, whatever it is,
Yep.
is what was in the year one option in the contract. Likely it is, but
Inflation by
I
design.
can't say that without
Yeah.
having it right in front of me. Right. Right.
Okay. And Mr. Thibodeau?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know, last year when we were doing this, I was really emphatic about feeling that we should have a seat at the table. And although we still don't have a seat at the table, and maybe that's not an appropriate approach, but I feel as if we're closer to that, because I feel as if we're more involved in the process now than we were previously, and that we're being listened to, which makes a big difference from where I sit. If we can say all that we want to say around this horseshoe, but if in fact no one's listening, then it's all for naught. So I think it shows that they are listening, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
So I feel more comfortable with this the way it is now.
Okay. So moving forward, you have some contracts, and you can certainly see the language difference between original bid and current language, as well as a copy of the contract. But it appears that we, even though we'll have Mr. Furtado, can we move forward with a vote on this one?
Same as,
Or
you're gonna do it next week after you hear your questions?
Maybe we just wait till.
Just do it next week?
Okay. Council
That's
Wade
it.
seconded, so I accept it.
So what time is that meeting gonna be, 6:30?
Probably have to be 6:30.
Yeah.
And,
I'll withdraw my second.
thank you, and I'll withdraw.
Doesn't go that far. I'd like to get that on the line. Faster we give them the approval to spend it, we're first in line to get some of these projects done that are outside contractors, and our better advantage of contracts. Any questions or comments?
If I may, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, the fact that we got that all of the cities and towns in the state received that extra pothole money, if you will, for the lack of the proper title, I think that's helped, I know it's helped Attleboro with the pothole problem and a lot of the damage that was done to the roadways where they had to take out large swaths of asphalt and put in new in order to make the patch a more permanent fixture rather than just have it break up again. So I think that's taken some of the pressure off of Public Works as far as being able to go out and spend the Chapter 90 funds on our normal maintenance issues rather than on all of the repair from this lousy winter that we had.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Thibodeau. Normally, that 180,000, I talked to Ron Dubuque today, and we're well along on that. There's not a heck of a lot left to do, but you knocked almost $200,000 off $1.2 million.
Right.
That's a lot less money we would have to do projects that are definitely necessary throughout the city. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Secondly, from the docket of May 5th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to lay out Riverfront Drive as a public way and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements pursuant to Mass General Law 82-2 and 16-21 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro as shown on a plan and profile entitled Riverfront Drive, Attleboro, Mass. Acceptance Plan and Profile by Horsley Whitney Group, dated 4/10/2015, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, which plan and profile has been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works. Provided there is no objection at the public hearing next week, and hopefully everything is fine and we can get that project, keep moving it. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of May 5th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the petition from National Grid and Verizon, 280 Melrose Street, Providence, Rhode Island, to relocate pole number 671026 plus or minus southeast to accommodate the proposed roadway entrance to the new Riverfront Drive on Olive Street.
Second.
This is strictly moving a pole so that that road can go through. We don't have a pole in the middle of the road.
That's a good idea.
Good idea, huh? So it's, all three of these last motions
Traffic stopping
intertwine with
device,
each other, and it's all related to that project on Riverfront Road. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Move to adjourn at 8:23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
I'd like to call Transportation and Traffic Committee to order at 8:23. I have no motions to bring forward tonight, but I do have an update on a motion that was brought in from Councilor Cooper, November of 2013, which was to install a traffic light at the intersection of Rathbun Willard Drive and Thatcher Street, and to refer that to the Traffic Study Commission. It has that location has undergone a lot of study since that point in time. We've kicked around ideas of right turn onlys out of that intersection, having police details there, moving the pedestrian crosswalk from for a little bit further down the road away from the intersection where currently where the crossing guard has the children cross, but pushes the ped cycle. That then it'll become operational to work that ped cycle as it should. However, I do see, for instance, that there may be a time when I will come back and ask that we have no right on red when the ped cycle is activated at that intersection, because the location of where the children have their crosswalk and the crossing guard now will be brought back to that intersection, because they will be, but that will be, without those restrictions, then you wouldn't have the safety for the kids using the crosswalks crossing Thatcher or the crosswalk crossing Rathbun Willard. So, and obviously the crossing guard can only be at one location at one time with one group of kids. If they have to keep moving around, then it's going to take longer for that cycle to go through. Yes, Mr. Conti.
I'm really pleased to hear this, Mr. Chairman, because many people have asked me for lights at that intersection. And I've attended several traffic study committee meetings when we were wrestling with, and this is the least expensive way for the city to try to make an effort to resolve the traffic issues at that location. And
On a regular basis, I think it's going to make the traffic in the morning far more tolerable than it currently is. So thank you. Very excited about it.
It's been an effort, I'll tell you. Councilor Cooper.
Thank you, Councilor Thibodeau, and thank you for all your effort around this, and I'm going to give you a little history. As I was out doing my thing, former Councilor Viveros was the constituent, in fact, that asked me about this. Many of you know his wife Janine works at the school, and he's down there quite frequently, and the Coopers travel down there quite frequently with two kids going to school at Studley. And if the school buses and some friendly parents don't stop to let the traffic go, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
So I'm delighted that it's actually coming to this, and it was well studied many years ago, and Councilor Viveros, former Councilor Viveros gave me all the history on the redesign and the construction and the lights, and they were supposed to be put and they weren't put, and they should have been, and so.
We had a little game, there was some game playing going on.
Yeah, there was some-
Between this, District 5 and the city of Attleboro at the time.
Yes, and so I'm
Because I remember seeing copies of both the permission from District 5 and the revoking of the permission from District 5. So there was a little bit of disagreement going on.
Yeah.
Between a bureaucracy and a municipal government.
It's a great
Surprise.
thing. All the, as soon as it's done, all the people in the area and those that travel daily to that school should notice a marked difference in the time, and you can almost walk there sometimes faster, I think, from my house to the school than come all the way back through the traffic times. And everybody that goes that way thinks they have it down to a science until there's one little hiccup that really sets you back. So it's a great thing that it's actually finally going to happen. And again, thank you to Councilor Viveras for reminding me, and he would ask me from time to time what's going on, and I told him Walter is taking care of it and working through it and trying to come up with a solution, and here we are, and we've finally figured it out. So it's excellent. Thank you very much again for all your
Tony was
effort.
the chair of this committee for a lot of years, and so just because you move on to other things doesn't mean you stop caring about things.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Yes, Councilor
I
Hagan.
say thank you too, because I know I had brought this up even the other night. I had taught at Studley, I've even taught at Brennan, and I'm one of the people that Mark says stops. I don't care if I get beeped at for stopping to let the flow go, because sometimes it does help, and County Square's already backed up. I travel that way every morning, and it's already backed up. Hopefully now Tiffany Street will be reopened. But anyway, the traffic is stopped all the way, sometimes from the highway back, and this is just huge too for the safety of those children.
Absolutely.
And even the crossing guards, they,
This is proof, if anyone had any doubt, that things don't always move that quickly. But they do move, even if it's only at a snail's pace. And sometimes other things have to be done in order to be able to do what you really like to do. So I just wanted to announce it because I know I'm happy about it. I figured the rest of you folks would be happy about it as well. And were you going to say something, Pete?
I was going to tell you what,
Yeah.
it looks like they were laying blacktop down Tiffany Street today, so that should.
Yeah, I believe the opening date is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, for Tiffany Street. So, without any further discussion on this, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:34. Thank you.
hey, Mark, that's Ward 2, but you know what's funny? The residents would rather see
They were laying
them. This
blacktop
way you don't have to
7:30
deal
this
with it. They like the violations of no cars.
They have it on the channel today that was opening up tomorrow.
I'm going to go right from here, because I think it's going to be relatively quick. From the docket of May 5th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $8,690 to account 121-01000-558310, police uniforms from account 11241-000-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer relative to the purchase of police uniforms, which is a contractual obligation.
Second. I call City Property and Claims to order at 8:37. I have a couple of motions to discuss here tonight. I just wanted to clear up a small amount of old business. Last week, we surplused a BMW that was available, through the police department. I did speak with the chief today. My apologies again, I was hospitalized for a couple of days, so I wasn't able to get all of my work complete on time. So it was actually a vehicle that we got through drug deal, and there's not any other information that I'm allowed to give you. Should you, I can guarantee that the city of Attleboro is not purchasing BMWs for the police to drive around in. In addition to that, if you're interested in purchasing this particular vehicle, you can go onto publicsurplus.com, because our Carol Brown, our purchasing agent, at the request of the mayor, puts different vehicles and different things that we surplus on this website. It tends to bring in, it's kind of like an eBay for public entities, and it actually brings in more money than how we usually used to be able to do that. I did send an email to the mayor today requesting that the mayor and Carol come down and have a conversation with us so that they can really explain to us a little bit better and in depth how publicsurplus.com works and how it's been benefiting our community. So I look forward to hearing back from them and getting a date on that. So now I shall move on. From the docket of May 5th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $36,950.10 from account 1000359,000 undesignated fund to be corrected. The bid did go out. It did go to the lowest bidder, who was Fire Equipment Inc. in Medford. You have to say it that way when you're from Boston, like I am. Medfa. For $33,591. The chief did get this information. He did review it. He feels that he's very comfortable with the price and looks forward to making those corrections. Questions, concerns, problems? Yeah.
You said 33,598.
Excuse me.
I'll take it there's a contingency.
There is a
built in.
contingency in
All right,
that, yes. Thank you very much. There what, if I, hold on a second. I have it right here. Yeah, it's about $4,000. No, of course, I left that piece over there.
That's
So
like
there
a
is a 10%,
10%
it's a 10%
contingency, that's fine.
contingency in the event that something else is necessary. So again, any questions, concerns, or problems? I move for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $5,581 from account 11241000587,395 citywide improvement to HVAC to account 1124100378300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to as transferred funding for the HVAC unit at the Shane Building are complete and these funds are no longer needed. It's replacing the pneumatic presses in the graphic arts department that are currently 40-plus years old, which is not even remotely compatible with the graphic design computer work that we currently have. And for the industry has moved far and away from what we currently have, and the kids are not being trained properly. So if you're in the CTE program, when you come out of the CTE program, you want to be competitive, and you're being prevented from being competitive because you're still using a pneumatic press. So the lease agreement for this, it is, so again, we're not in charge, the council is not in charge of appropriating the money. This is completely coming from the school's budget, so I'm not even going to entertain a discussion about the finance portion of it. This is solely about approving the 5-year lease. They say they have the money, that they are being able to budget for it, so I say give it to them, and it's for the kids. And the kids in the CTE program need this if we're gonna continue trying to make improvements in the CTE program. This is necessary. Questions or concerns? Anything?
It's like trying to teach with a 40-year-old book.
Right.
We're not doing them any favors.
The world has changed.
The world has changed, and I would have to say that after 40 years, whatever our capital investment was in the pneumatic presses, I'm quite confident that we've used every single penny of it.
Yep.
And just as a point of interest as well, I do have the contracts here available. Should anyone want to look at it, everything is included in this. So there's very minimal, alternate expenses that the school department will have to worry about. It's completely, they're billing the service, all of it. So I'm excited for the schools.
That is a lease purchase, I would assume.
Yes,
The end of it, you own it,
Yes.
basically,
Yes.
for down.
if it's still compatible. We'll have to see if
Well, the way
it's still
stu-
compatible with the way
stu-
things go.
way stuff is moving, who knows?
Exactly.
you're right.
I had a lot of
You're
stuff
right,
printed
make it
off
better to
those
lease and
presses when I
keep
taught
leasing.
high school up there.
So, Ms. Hegney, if you'd like to say that out loud for everyone.
No, I was just saying, you're right, because if it's obsolete in 5 years, we won't want that lease and we won't want to buy it.
The other, also, if I may, if I will speak to, with regards to the money, just very momentarily. So the whole projected cost, gentlemen, excuse me, sorry. The whole projected cost is about $110,000. However, some of the special funding that Canon uses, they are making a very sizable half the amount donation back to the Attleboro Public Schools.
Cool.
So it doesn't actually cost, the net cost isn't actually $110,000, it's significantly less. And they can use that money how they need to use it. So it's about a $60,000. I'm not going to use the word kickback because that doesn't sound good, but
Incentive.
incentive. There you go.
Just to verify that, you get a lot of major manufacturers and tools and equipment, and they cut the prices tremendously to get them in our vocational schools and vocational areas, so that the students are taught on their equipment, and hopefully when they go into the field,
Right.
they have a preference for their equipment. Snap-on Tools used to do it, and it used to really bother me when I'd pay $30 for a wrench at my garage, and we were paying $15.
As the daughter of a tradesman and sister of tradesmen, we've had all sorts of incentives that have wound their way across my path. So the motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I lost my paperwork. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. And finally, this evening, entertain a motion in accordance with Section 2-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the following water department items as surplus and available for disposition: 240 water meters, condition used, 1 Orion Star Bench Top pH fluoride multimedia, serial number E01306, no longer works, and 1 Simplex consecutive time clock, serial number B3235620003W, no longer works.
Second.
Thank you. This is our, every 6 weeks we surplus a bunch of water meters as we progress through the city. Not a whole lot